Hello and welcome to the Atomic Impact Podcast, designed to help business owners and leaders with short atomic episodes to impact your business for marketing, sales, business growth, personal growth, and much, much more. I'm your host, Jason Osborne, and I'm looking forward for your business and life to be positively impacted by this podcast. And as a thank you, just for listening, I'd like to give you free access to my LinkedIn mini course to help you get on the right track with LinkedIn to generate high quality leads without being spammy. All you need to do is go to www.impactforleads.com to get immediate access. Now, let's jump into today's episode. Hey, it is Jason Osborne here again, and welcome back again to another episode of the Atomic Impact Podcast. I am really excited to have Gisela on today. It's Gisela Abbam, and she has done some absolutely amazing things. It'd probably take me the full 15 minutes of this podcast to read out everything that she's done because she has just accomplished so much in her life. But what I'll do, I'll just kind of briefly introduce Gisela. She's the founder and managing director of OTGA Management Consultancy. The chair of the British Science Association and serves on the boards of the British Science Association, Woman Ltd, the Briyah Institute, USA. She also serves on various advisory committees. She was recently appointed as the commissioner for the newly formed National Preparedness Commission in the UK. She's worked in conjunction with the WHO, World Bank, the UN to improve health outcomes globally. And she is a Global Goodwill Ambassador. She was also recently named one of the 100 women to watch for FTSE 350 boards. And Gisela is also the winner of the 2019 Black British Business Person of the Year award. She was awarded the iconic Woman Creating a Better World by the Women of Economic Forum. Just on and on. Like I said, just so much that you've accomplished, Gisela. And it's absolutely my pleasure to have you on to the podcast today. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Jason. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Amazing. Well, we kind of had a pre-show chat, and like literally we could talk about so much. I mean, you've accomplished so many things, and it's the Atomic Impact Podcast, so we want to keep it short. But one of the things that I know we were chatting about, kind of two things I'd love for you to just share your experiences on to add value with people listening to the podcast today. One is around the whole element of what you have basically been able to accomplish in helping people finding their purpose, what really kind of makes them alive and help them find their calling. I know you've kind of been through your own challenges, and as a result, you became a global health leader because of those. So it'd be great to just chat through that, and as well as the strategic partnerships and how you have used strategic partnerships to help you get to where you are today. So do you want to just kind of share a little bit of your story, Gisela, and we'll kind of go from there?
Yes. Thank you so much, Jason. Yes, I know finding one's passion and purpose in life is so important. I remember finishing university and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I think it's important for people to just embrace the journey. But then I was working in local government in policy and strategy. And then I got involved in a car accident. I got ill, couldn't walk for a long time, had some other health conditions as well. And just going through all that was so challenging. And I ended up losing a kidney through late diagnosis as well. So after having all that ill health, being in and out of the hospital for quite a number of years, I realized that, look, I need to do something to channel all that I've learned through this, plus my skills in policy and strategy to help other people. And I said to myself, I want to become a health advocate. And for me, that was a eureka moment. I was like, maybe this is my calling in life. And so I ended up joining NICE, which is the National Institute for Health and Clinical Excellence. I helped set up the Public Health Center. And then from there, I moved into GE as a Director for Government Affairs and Policy and started this global engagement when I was promoted. And my focus was on early diagnosis, so really advocating for early diagnosis of diseases. So worked with the WHO on a number of committees, was interacting with ministers, prime ministers, and presidents at the UN General Assembly. So that's how it started, that through an ill health and through something that actually could have been disastrous for my life, what I learned through all that process, I used it because I was actually diagnosed privately, because there's so much, and bless the NHS, they are brilliant, but they are obviously there's so much they are dealing with. And because my conditions and my symptoms were not the usual symptoms, they didn't pick up on the disease, the kidney disease. So I was diagnosed privately. So I said to myself, so if my family didn't have the money to take me private, goodness knows what would have happened to me. And so how can we then get early diagnosis? That if someone presents with symptoms that are not usual, and it's a person who normally doesn't go to the doctor, can't we ensure that person gets more thorough testing to ensure that if there's something untoward going on, they can deal with it? So that's how I became a global leader. And I speak to students, I speak to young professionals saying that, what can you do? Find out what your strengths and weaknesses are. Or if something bad has happened in your life, or there's a problem, out of that problem, you can come up with a solution that can actually drive change and make a difference. And that we have to use what we have to improve, and really have that as the starting point. So that's how my journey developed, and that's how, as I move up, I share my career journey with people, talk about my ups and downs in life, and said, if I can turn around, so can anyone.
That's an amazing story. There's so much in that. So, okay, so a couple questions that I have for you around that, because one of the things that I get asked a lot because I've been coaching and mentoring people for probably 14 years now. Like, it's been a long time, and I coach and help businesses and all that. But one of the things that oftentimes people ask is like, particularly for people wanting to go into business, they'll go, well, what do I do? What's my direction? All that sort of stuff. And one of the things that you've said around that is you took a challenge, a negative situation in your life, and you turn that around to be able to move forward and get to where you are right now. And I think, so my question is this: people can look at the end result of, well, it's not the end result, because I'm sure you've got a lot more stuff to do, but they can look at where you are now and say, okay, well, that's great, you've been able to accomplish that. But when that happened to you and you decided, you know what, I want to make change, did you look at it from a perspective of, this is where I want to be, which is kind of where you are now? Or did you just go, I want to make a difference? And it kind of evolved over time. So what were your initial thoughts, and how did it kind of evolve to where you are right now?
Yeah, I realized I just said, oh, I want to make a difference. And then evolved over time, because I didn't have a background in health. I didn't have a health qualification. Most people I knew had a master's in public health. I didn't have any of that. I only had GCSE science. So none of the criteria. So everyone was saying to me, Gisela, how are you going to become a health leader when you don't have any of the skills or requirements? I said, well, I have the passion and I have a lived example. And so I said, let me just start it that way. And my passion, and I think my interest to learn, really is what spurred me on. And what helped me, where you talked about strategic partnerships, was developing partnerships which were not the usual type of partnerships, and spending time to understand the customers or the people I wanted to partner with. What was the terminology that was important for them? So whether it was governments, whether it was charities, whether it was other private sector organizations, how could I bring them all together for the greater good? And obviously working for a multinational company as well, whilst we're doing that, then also helping the company to grow, but making sure there are newer innovations that are available as well. So that's how we started. And as I was developing it and moving up, then I said, actually, I can become a global advocate. And so that's how it grew. But at the beginning, honestly, with my background and no experience, I didn't even dream that far. You
Wow, that's amazing. I think that's so key for a lot of people. I, I think we tend to, at least I know I can be like
know.
this. I tend to look at the end result of where I'd like to go and think, oh my God, how in the world am I ever going to get there? But I
Yeah,
love what you said. You just decided you were going to start,
yeah,
and you took those actions to be involved. And then as you got more involved, even when, I love it, even when people were saying, Gisela, you don't even have any qualifications, like, what are you doing? You're like, well, I don't
yeah,
care, I'm just going to help. And as
yeah,
you started doing that, you took those key connections and strategic partnerships and began to work. And it sounds like not even it didn't even sound like you had like a strategic plan to necessarily get to where you are now. It just evolved, and then he said, oh,
evolve.
actually, I've got a platform here that I can move forward with. So
Yes.
for those people, whether they're in business right now wanting to create more strategic partnerships, or people that think, what, I want to have more of an impact, but I don't even know what are some of the key things, or maybe you can give an example of a strategic partnership, how you develop that out, and how it's been able to help you get to where you are right now.
Yeah, so I say it's good to have the goals and ambitions, but it's good to start small if you haven't done it before. So I remember developing a partnership with UNFPA, which is the UN Population Fund. And for a medical technology company, we had nothing in common with them in the sense that they train midwives mainly. Yes, they work in maternal, newborn, and child health, which we had the medical technologies for, but their work was mainly about reproductive health, training midwives, and ensuring that across the world there's enough health workers, for that whole care pathway.
Yeah.
But what they had a campaign which they said is called Safe Birth Even Here, which is for war-torn countries like Iraq and Iran to ensure that they can raise the profile of the fact that they need better conditions for pregnant women so that they have a safe birth even in those areas. And so it was something new to me. I didn't know anything about them. But I said, this is interesting because this touches on the fact that it's real, it's raw, it's a problem. And so I'm going to use my platform to help and join them to really amplify it. So that's how I started. So I just took that one organization. And they then decided to have a launch at the UN General Assembly. I didn't know at the time they got Google, they got Benetton, they had a number of big names, and they had a crown princess from Denmark who decided to attend. So it ended up being a big event where we got a lot of publicity. We're in the newspapers, as in the newspapers as well. But the important thing was that it gave me a focus in terms of building that partnership and saying, okay, how can we help you? And then they said, you focused on us and we looking at what you do in GE. It would be interesting if our midwives understood the innovations that you are developing, and they can become champions in their countries. And so it took another dimension where we worked together, set up this education platform for young midwives who were learning. And then we were able to showcase new innovations for that whole maternal, newborn, child health platform so that then they became advocates. So the partnership that started, from one area, it developed into another area. And using that as an example, when partners get comfortable with you and they get to know you and see that you are there genuinely to help them, it opens up other doors and avenues for you to do other things as well.
That's amazing. That is such an amazing story. So, a couple key things that I pulled out from that is, one, you just looked for an opportunity and said, "Where can I help?" And you just
Yes.
started adding value to them, which I think is such a key thing that we kind of know in theory, but to actually do that, we often don't do it. We don't actually just go, well, I'm passionate about something. Let me just go in and add value. And then as you did that, more opportunities presented themselves, and you took a hold of those opportunities, which again, I think sometimes we tend not to, where we don't grab a hold of that. So that's just amazing how that's been able to um, just kind of spiral for you and continue to grow. So let's do this. I always like to just help people with like one or two things that they can take away, and they don't have to be on the UN platforms like
Yeah,
you are or
no.
anything like that. But what are one or two key things that if someone came to you and said, "Hey, Gisela, I want to have an impact. I want to be able to, whether it's growing my business or whether I want to have more impact with something that they're inspired about in life." What's just two things that they can start doing right now to have more influence and impact with what they do?
So first of all, I would say start with where are your strengths? What are you good at? And then identify where there's a gap with at least one of the skills that you have. And then start from there and saying, how can I help? Whether it's at a local level or a regional level or even a national level. And then you can also think about partnerships. I was talking to a number of businesses who have been hit by the COVID-19. And I said, actually, because you're small business, you can partner with other similar small size businesses. You pool your resources together and then you become stronger and you're able to compete rather than you all working separately and against each other and you're not actually winning. You could come together that way. So that's one point. Another point would be look at how you can go digital for a business person. That is so important, especially if you have services that were not, on a digital platform. Now the world is your oyster. So if there's any way you can get on the platform, it will be great. So you could be looking at partnerships with a small digital technology company who can help you to get your products and services out there. And they also will be making a name saying that, oh, we've helped this local business to achieve X. So I think those are the couple of things that you should do. And when you're trying to make a change, try and understand what the mission and vision of the organization you're trying to partner with, has, and what is important to them. So it's about them and not you. Because once they see you're working with them, focusing on them, you see they want to then know more about you. They start building that trust, and then they want to do other things with you.
That's such, man, so much in that. And I think that's really key. That the last thing you said in particular is something I'm really big on as well. I help companies with what they do on LinkedIn and how they market themselves. I'm always constantly telling people, stop telling people all about you. know, go in and say, how can I add value to what you're doing? Be focused on them. And I think that's such a key thing that you've just said. Understand what the values are of that company or organization that you're wanting to help, and how can you add as much value to them. And by doing that, it's a breath of fresh air, isn't it? Because they've got people
Yeah,
approaching them all the time, trying to leverage their networks to help them build their own company or
yeah,
business or whatever. And it's almost like, here, let me, I want to take from you. But if you can just go in there and add value, it's such a
yes,
different approach, and people are much more open to. As a matter of fact, I've even had people say like, "Well, what's the catch?" I'm like, "There isn't a
yeah.
catch." Like, I just want to help. And because people are
Exactly.
so used to, okay, well,
Yes,
great, now,
yes,
so how much are you going to charge and all that stuff. And it doesn't mean you can't charge for your services or anything
yes,
like
of
that,
course.
but it's just such valuable information, Gisela. That's amazing. Well, listen, it's the Atomic Impact Podcast. We're doing short episodes. I feel like I could talk to you for ages around this, but if people want to know more about what you do, how they can get in touch with you and potentially work with you, what's the best place for them to do that?
They can contact me by email. So Gisela at OTGA or contact me on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn, absolutely. And
Yes,
I always tell people we'll have all those in the show notes as well, so you guys can click on those links. But I always tell people, if you're gonna connect with anyone on LinkedIn from this podcast, make sure you send a connection message and say, hey, Gisela, I heard you on the podcast with Jason. Because if you don't, it's just going to be some random connection request that's been sent, and she may not even accept you. So at least say hello. You've heard her on the podcast. So listen, Gisela, it's an absolute amazing privilege to have you on the show. Thank you so much for the wisdom that you shared. You're doing some absolutely phenomenal things. And thank you for what you've been able to contribute to helping people and all the stuff you're doing on the health front. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Jason, for inviting me. Such a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Atomic Impact Podcast. And as a reminder, please go to www.impactforleads.com to get free access to my LinkedIn mini course to help you get on the right track with LinkedIn to generate high quality leads without being spammy. And please also like and share this episode with others and leave a comment, as I'd love to hear from you. This is Jason Osborne, and I look forward to sharing the next episode of the Atomic Impact Podcast with you.